All right, a little bit of a touchy subject matter for today. Raw diet or processed diet. And if you're familiar with the channel, you'll know that I used to feed Freddie kibble, a mixture of raw and kibble, and then I moved over to raw. So my decisions are based on what I have witnessed firsthand to benefit my dog. That's not to say though that there is a right or wrong answer, because ultimately it's your dog and every owner's lifestyle is very different. So what works for me might not work for you as the owner, and what works for my dog might not work for your dog. All I can say is that when I was feeding Freddie kibble, he always tended to look a lot more bloated and his stools were never that consistent, and on top of that I noticed that his energy wasn't as great as it is when I'm feeding him only raw food. And in terms of the human situation and the convenience side of things, feeding a raw diet is not that convenient. The food comes frozen, so you have to remember to leave one out to defrost. There's usually always blood somewhere in the kitchen or in the fridge if you're not careful. The containers that the food comes in are not very good, so that's kind of why blood ends up in places. But ultimately, as a personal opinion, I do believe that raw is better for dogs. Another side note from when I was feeding Freddie kibble, I noticed that his teeth got really yellow really quickly and they required cleaning more frequently. But when I'm feeding him a raw diet, his teeth are cleaner, and then I give him a raw bone to chew on, and that's just like the ultimate toothbrush. And I know that I sound like I'm siding more towards raw food, and that's just because it's what I feed my dog. But I do want to make it very clear for anybody who's watching this video that at the end of the day, it's your dog and it needs to work for you and your dog. So if you're feeding your dog kibble and they're absolutely fine on it, they're not bloated, their teeth are not staining, and the energy levels are perfect, and it's super easy and convenient for you, then that's absolutely great. If your dog's energy seems low and they're having bad stools, then it's probably time to experiment with different food sources. But ultimately, and I'll say it for the last time, it's really up to you and your situation and what works for you and your dog. So don't be put off by people who are these advocates for raw feeding only, but also don't be put off by people who only feed kibble to their dogs. So I hope this information helps. Let me know how you guys get on. I think the ultimate takeaway here is just to experiment with what works for you and your dog. And if it works for you and your dog, then nothing else really matters.